should Rodgers be worried about this O-line?
No, and I remain adamant about that. I love the urgency that he's speaking on. Like, not all 5 guys have earned those positions yet. All right, so there's a lot to point out in this situation. Number one, to Rich Cimini's tweet, and I texted Rich about this. So the lineup yesterday that the Jets had versus the Bucs, who are a very good defensive line, was Billy Turner at left tackle. He's a backup. They had Joe Tippmann at left guard, who's a rookie too, and a backup to Elijah Vera Tucker. Their starting center, McGovern, was in there. Right guard was Schweitzer, who's a backup, and right tackle was Max Mitchell. So 2 backups and a rookie going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line. Every single team in the NFL is going to struggle versus that. So the context of that matters. I'll say this. The Jets, I honestly think that they know who their 5 offensive line are going to be. Their left tackle is going to be Mekhi Becton. Their left guard is going to be Vera Tucker. Their center is going to be McGovern. Their right guard is going to be Laken Tomlinson. Their right tackle is going to be Max Mitchell or Dwayne Brown. All 5 of those guys, to Robert Saleh's point, individually are good players. They just got to play together, and that's fair. I'm not disputing that. But we're making this conversation about the Jets' offensive line to be that they don't have good players. Yes, they have to stay healthy. Welcome to the reality of the NFL. Every team has to stay healthy, and they got to get time together. There's a difference between availability and capability. They are absolutely capable, with the 5 that I just listed off, of being a good offensive line. Plenty good enough to make sure that Garrett gets the ball, and Mecole Hardman and Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook touch the football, Allen Lazard. But they got to get together. But we talk about them like they're not good and they're not healthy. That's not the case. So I don't think that they should be overly concerned. To Aaron's point, he wants his 5 together at some point for a week. I just think we all need to pump the brakes on this offensive line being the worst one in the history of the NFL.
You just mentioned 2 backups and a rookie, though, that we saw against them on that joint practice. Why did we see them, though? It's that health thing again. I mean, I know we keep mentioning the health thing again, but when you're talking about this line, you're talking about Becton. Yes, he's young. He's 24 years old. We've hardly seen him start in the NFL over the course of his NFL career because he's missed so much significant time here over the last 2 seasons. Dwayne Brown, 38 years old, coming off that surgically repaired shoulder, still on that PUP list, Dan. We don't know when he's going to be back, and we don't frankly know what he's going to look like when he is back. Vera Tucker missed significant time last season. I think he started 7 games last season for them. They have pieces, they have talent, but it is a broken line. And then the guys that are healthy, you mentioned it. You think Mitchell is going to start at right tackle when the season starts. He's been toggling back and forth with Turner. Right tackle, left tackle, right tackle, left tackle. The reason they're toggling those guys is because neither of those guys have stood out so far in training camp. So the healthy pieces don't look great, and the unhealthy pieces are the pieces that you're relying on to protect a 39-year-old, almost 40-year-old quarterback.
So Mekhi Becton's not playing with the first team right now because he has to prove that he can, in Robert Saleh's words, prove that he can play that amount of snaps to go in week 1. It would be coaching malpractice to just take Mekhi Becton, who, to your point, has been injured over 2 years, and go, you're our starting left tackle. We're just going to go with you. That would be a bad job by them because there is the reality that he hasn't been on the field for the past 2 years. So prove to us that you can go 20 snaps in a game, 30 snaps in a game, 40 snaps in a game. That is going to happen over the next 2 weeks, hopefully for the Jets fans. He's going to play left tackle. The reason why guys move around is because they're trying to cross-train them. They're trying to say, hey, if Mekhi doesn't play, is Billy good enough for week 1 or week 2, or should we get Max Mitchell there or Dwayne? So that's a common practice in the NFL, to get offensive linemen playing in all these different positions. But that being said, that's why I continue to go back to this point. If we just take those 5, that's a good unit. They got to play together. I'm not running from that. But there's a difference between not having guys that are good enough, no matter what the combination is, or just making sure that at the right time those guys get their reps together. I don't think that there's a lack of talent across their offensive line.
So I would say this, and you know this more than anybody because you played the quarterback position. I think consistency is everything.
Yep.
And this offensive line cannot have that consistency right now as it's constructed because you don't have everybody out there at one time.
Yes.
I think it can get annoying to a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers when you know who your guys can probably be, but they're not out there.
Sure.
Right? Because I think at the end of the day, you got to understand and know what your DNA is as an offensive line. Are you a physical offensive line? Are you a finesse offensive line? I think another thing, when I look at offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett, it's hard for him right now to get a beat to see what's the weakest link on my offensive line so we can game plan accordingly.
Sure.
They have a little time because I understand they do have the Buffalo Bills. What is it, 3 weeks?
Yeah,
I think
September
they got 3
11th,
weeks.
opening Monday Night Football.
That's the thing. From this point moving forward, how quickly can they get those guys together
Right.
so he can understand from an offensive standpoint, offensive scheme, what's our weakest link? How do we need the game plan for the Buffalo Bills and then the Dallas Cowboys in week 2? Because those two teams have elite pass rushers. Not a guy that can potentially get to the quarterback or every now and then do it. You talk about Michael Parsons. You talk about Von Miller, who's a walking Hall of Famer. So I think from that standpoint, getting that continuity and building that trust with your quarterback, Aaron Rodgers,
right,
I think is very important. I do agree with you. I don't think those guys can't play the offensive line position. But I do believe in continuity, being in unison with one another, being there together, getting those reps.
Right.
But if those guys aren't doing that collectively as a group,
right,
the dark cloud for this team, the only thing I think that can derail the Jets right now is their offensive line.
I don't dispute that at all. I think 3 things factor into this. Number 1, having Aaron Rodgers will help that offensive line.
Yeah.
Just the way that he can communicate to them, the way that he can run the line of scrimmage, the way that he can remember things, and you could expedite the learning process just a little bit in that. Number 2, this isn't an offense that has to score 30 points a game to win football games.
I do agree with that.
This is an offensive, their defense that's going to be top 2, 3 in the NFL. So, hey, score 15, score 18, and they're going to be just fine. So that's going to help not have to expose an offensive line. If you're Nathaniel Hackett, your offensive coordinator, you're going to sit there and you could go up 14-3 in games and be like, hey, boys, we're going to protect us here. We're going to lean on the run, and we're going to make sure that we don't expose you guys. So that's going to help them as well. And then the third thing is there David Bakhtiari signing in the future, the left tackle for the Green Bay Packers? They got plenty of good offensive linemen. I don't know if they would get rid of him, and I don't know if they would ship him to the New York Jets, but there is that at least rumored flirtation.
When it comes to a guy like Aaron Rodgers and a veteran quarterback, period, I don't care what team he's on, the trust. Can I trust this guy when I turn my back and I play fake to throw this football downfield that I'm going to be okay?
Right. Yeah.
David Bakhtiari is one of his closest friends. That's a guy he trusts 1,000%, not 100, 1,000%. So if they're able to get him and make it work, I think it'll be strong riddance for.
Let's bring another O-lineman into the picture who has durability concerns now coming off of last season. What did Aaron Rodgers look like during an injury-riddled season with Bakhtiari? So I have a hard time believing that he's the answer. I just don't understand the confidence level that you had that this line can even come together. And it's so important for Aaron Rodgers because although you said Rodgers is going to help this line situation, Aaron Rodgers, a QBR since 2020, his QBR when he's not pressured, 2nd in the NFL. When he's pressured, 24th in the NFL. His completion percentage, 5th when he's not pressured in the entire NFL. 28th when he's pressured in the entire NFL. This is out of 37 quarterbacks, by the way, who have at least 500 passes. Yards per attempt, 7th best in the NFL when he's not pressured. 32nd out of 37 quarterbacks when he's pressured. Dan, he's almost 40 years old. He is turning 40 in December in season. This is not Lamar Jackson. This ain't even Patrick Mahomes, even in his prime. This is a pocket passer who is about to be 40 years old, who frankly, although a 4-time MVP, does not handle pressure well. He doesn't.
You said that those stats were from 2020?
No, 2020 till now.
Okay, in 2020 and 2021, he won MVP.
I understand that, but he had protection in front of him. And so that's the key here, is when you're looking at the pressure versus no pressure for Aaron Rodgers or a lack of pressure or less pressure, right? He's not as good under pressure. He's not a quarterback that utilizes his legs.
The only quarterbacks that are really good under pressure are like Patrick and Josh. You know, like those are the freakazoids, though. But my understanding or like my reasoning to not being overly concerned is if we're going to sit there and say and have a conversation, like having a very real one about in the AFC, who we think are the legit Super Bowl contenders. We're going to say the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to say the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to say the Buffalo Bills. So does everyone know the Buffalo Bills have a weakness of offensive line as well? Like their unit's not that great. And I would sit there and say that the 5, I will go back to, the 5 that the Jets can put out there that have health issues from the past, they're better than the 5 that the Bills could put out there, or just as good.
But
absolutely.
I would say this though, like
into this
the
more
Buffalo
later,
Bills aren't learning a new offense either.
Right.
Neither
right?
are
everyone.
Neither are the Jets.
Nathaniel Hackett.
He's running the same stuff that Mike LaFleur ran. I mean, they're running the same schematic
the same
stuff.
tee?
No.
Oh yeah. I mean, but it's the same stuff. I mean, it's the Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, Gary Kubiak.
I hope it's not the exact same stuff because it certainly didn't look good. And we can't be in a situation where Aaron Rodgers gets knocked out of the game and we're relying on Zach Wilson, right? If you're the Jets. We know how that also looked in that scheme last year. Josh Allen, a much more mobile quarterback.
Yes,
a
absolutely.
much different type of quarterback. He
think,
invites the contact. He invites
I think
the
that
pressure.
we are making the Jets' offensive line capability out to be significantly less than they actually are.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.